Good evening, everyone. Right, this session today. We're looking at some objects from the collection, mostly new acquisitions, but our colleague Friday has got something that has been around for a while to talk to you about as well, which has just gone on display. So, Lisa, would you like to introduce yourself briefly?
Hi there, I'm Lisa Brown. I'm the curator at the museum and I look after the collections.
And Friday?
Hi, I'm Friday Schoemaker. I'm the project assistant for the Assizes for Devizes project.
Okay, so now you know who we are. I'm going to get the first objects out. So, as you'll see, I'm wearing gloves. What I'm now going to do is switch to a separate camera. So I'll be disappearing, and in a moment, the others will disappear as well, and we'll be able to look at the object in a bit more detail, or the objects. So what you're looking at here is the tray, and I'm just going to bring the two objects in for you to look at.
This is my favourite acquisition of the year so far. And it's not archaeology as an archaeologist. So
That's quite something.
yeah.
Right. So Lisa, Friday, if you like to turn your cameras off, then hopefully it'll go full screen so you can see the objects. Okay, Lisa, would you like to tell us a bit about these?
Yeah, sure. So these are two well-worn children's shoes, and they were found inside a chimney of an early 19th century house in Rowde. As you can see, they're not a pair. And they were donated to the museum by the former occupant of the house who discovered them during some renovation works around the chimney area of the house several years ago. And they were bricked up in the chimney. So it's not as though they were um, accidentally left there or forgotten about. They were actually deliberately put into that space. Now, as you can see, they're very small. So they're toddler size shoes and they're well worn and they're not a pair. And shoes have been discovered in all sorts of unusual places within buildings, including the chimney breasts, like these ones. They're also found within walls, under windowsills, over door lintels, beneath floorboards, and they're found in all sorts of different kinds of houses as well. And this is an early 19th century house in Rowde near Devizes. Um, and in most cases, the shoes that are found in these concealed environments are individuals and not a pair, and they're completely worn out, as you can see. So these are called concealed objects, and they're part of folklore. It's believed that they will protect the building and the people inside from evil spirits if you put them in a place where possibly evil spirits could enter the building. So down chimneys, near windows, doorsteps, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
And people
see,
believe that the personal nature of these objects would attract and trap evil influences before they could get into the house.
but as shoes, they're gorgeous, aren't they? Because they are really very small.
They're
And
very small.
yet on this one, you've got the laces. So they were, one, two, three, four, five, what are they called? Holes
Eyelets?
for the laces. Eyelets, that's it. Thank you. It's a really beautifully made. And as you say, they're well worn at the back. So it's actually worn at the heel. So it really must have been a toddler. You imagine loads of toddlers must have used them because these leather shoes like this would have been, they're properly made. So you can imagine them being handed across from sort of neighbor to neighbor, family to family.
Absolutely. But yeah, they are hand-me-downs for sure.
Yeah. And this one, I can see the toe is made of leather, but is that canvas, do you think, the body of the shoe?
Yeah, I think it is some sort of fabric.
Mm.
Yeah. So these shoes, they've been found all over the country in all sorts of different types of houses, And in 1950, the keeper of the boot and shoe collection at Northampton Museum and Art Gallery noticed that footwear was being regularly brought into the museum for identification and donation, and that they were being found concealed inside buildings. And it was happening way too frequently for it to be accidental or you know, just something that was happening as clothes and personal possessions were being discarded. So she started to record them all and gather information to try and explain what was happening. So she was doing that from the 1950s. And by 1986, the museum had catalogued 700 occurrences of these shoes being found concealed in different types of buildings across the country. And today we have 3,000 individual shoes listed and in 2,000 specific locations across the country. So this is something that was happening across the country to as part of folklore to try and protect yourself against evil spirits. And it's largely found in 18th and 19th century buildings.
And we've got several, haven't we?
Yes, we do, but these are the nicest ones, and I'm planning to put them on display next year as part of our folk exhibition.
Oh yeah, you better tell us a bit more about that. That's
So
really quite exciting.
yeah, it's a Wessex Museums Partnership exhibition. It's going to be touring the partner museums starting in Swindon later this year in the autumn, and then it's coming to us in the spring. And it's an exhibition that's going to be exploring all sorts of folklore across the Wessex region, with objects being lent from the partner museums.
Yeah. Okay. So over to you now. Is there anything anyone want to ask? Any questions? Anyone want to say anything? Just let me know, and then I'll be able to add you to the. I'll be able to turn your microphone on. No, doesn't sound like it. Okay, now I can put them away very carefully. But a couple of other things found in the same house. Were they? Oh, and the other thing you get in houses as well is cats, isn't it?
Yes.
You sometimes get cats placed in chimneys.
Yeah, cat skeletons, yes. We
And
don't have
then,
any of those in the collections, but we do have a snake skeleton with a rat skull attached to it that was found in a farmhouse in Laycock, which again is another folklore object, which hopefully will feature in the exhibition. And it's about warding evil spirits away from your house. So along with these shoes, in the same vicinity of the chimney area of the house in Rowde, there was a rather nice trade token found, and also part of a clay pipe, which there we go. So the trade token's particularly useful because we know the house dates to the early 19th century, and I have been in contact with the new owner to find out if we can get an exact date of the deeds. But the trade token is dated to 1797. So that would give us one of the earliest, that would give us the earliest date. And it's a Devizes trade token. And on it is stamped I, Basta, and that's the person who issued the token. And on the reverse of the token, it says the arms of the town of Devizes.
so that's the one we're looking at here. Let me see if I can get a bit closer to it, the camera.
Yeah, that's coming into focus nicely. Okay, so you can see the arms of town of Devizes there. And then when you turn it over, we've got the chap's name with Devizes Wilts 1796. Now, originally I thought he was a brewer in Devizes, and the stag referred to a brewery, the White Hart Brewery. But actually, after doing a little bit more research, Joseph Basta was, he had a business in Northgate Street in Devizes, and he had lime and tan pits locally. So he was actually a manufacturer of breeches and gloves. And the stag probably refers to the deer hide that was used in the manufacturing process. So it was a lovely object to find alongside the shoes, a good dating tool as well.
Yeah. And we've got a couple of questions in. So from Heather, why do we think this practice is prevalent in the 18th and 19th centuries and not before?
Really due to the date of the houses that the shoes have been found in. I mean, I'm not a folklorist myself, so it's not my area of expertise. But it is largely 17th, 18th, 19th century. I have a 17th century house, and I'd love to find something like that in my chimney.
And Jill has said, were adult shoes used too as folklore objects?
Yeah, there are some adult shoes in the collections in Devizes as well as in Salisbury. Salisbury have got a larger collection than us that feature adult shoes that were used for the same sort of folklore purposes. I think it's that personal object, that connection, that makes it important for the folklore aspect and being able to ward off evil spirits. And I have read somewhere that children's shoes were often used because children are seen to be pure and innocent, and so that would be good at fighting something that was evil that was trying to get into the house.
And also, children probably got through shoes a lot quicker than adults.
Yeah.
Because, of course, adult shoes would be resold time and time again.
Mm. And this is the clay pipe that was found, again, in close proximity to the shoes and the trade token. Now, there is a maker's mark stamped on the bowl of the underside of the bowl of the clay pipe, but it's a very recent acquisition. It's only come in the last few weeks, and I haven't had the opportunity to track down the maker of the clay bowl, but it would be nice if it was a local one to Devizes. So
and it's
more on that in due course.
And it's quite an early one because it's you can date clay pipes by, in general terms, by how upright the bowl is. The more sloped forward it is, the older, and also the smaller, the older. So this is quite an early one. It's probably, my guess would be late 1600s.
Mm.
Might be a bit later, but it's definitely an early one. So that's that. And put that away. Maybe now, Friday, if we can turn to you, just put you on the spot while I put those away, and then try not to do anything to them. So Friday's going to be talking from some pictures. So I'm just bringing those up on screen for you if I can work out how to do it. Just need to share that. So hopefully you can see now the Memoirs of an Infantry Officer with Siegfried Sassoon. So Lisa, if you turn your camera off, then hopefully you and I disappear and Friday's on. Perfect.
Yeah. So I'm going to be discussing this 1931 illustrated edition of Memoirs of an Infantry Officer by Siegfried Sassoon. This is a fictional autobiography that was first published in 1930, and it basically describes Sassoon's life in the trenches between the spring of 1916 and the summer of 1917. And Sassoon was a celebrated First World War poet, and in his autobiographical works and anti-war poetry, he detailed his experiences in the army and the atrocities of the war. And during the war, he became an outspoken pacifist, and in a 1917 letter entitled A Soldier's Declaration, he wrote, "I believe that this war, upon which I entered as a war of defense and liberation, has now become a war of aggression and conquest." If I could just get the next slide. David, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just putting things away, so I haven't got my headphones on. Sorry.
That's right. So this book features a selection of beautiful illustrations by Barnett Friedman that really bring the story to life. And on this slide, you can see just a few of these illustrations. And if you're interested in a more in-depth look at these illustrations, you can go to our Instagram account where we have a video basically flipping through the book. But they are really, really lovely. Now, I looked at this object specifically through a queer lens. Throughout his life, Siegfried Sassoon had affairs with several men, including artists Gabriel Atkin and Stephen Tennant. And in one of his private diaries, Sassoon actually describes a spontaneous trip to Stonehenge with Tennant, who he says was making the most passionate avowals and simply intoxicating my senses. So Sassoon's story really brings a whole new context to this this war book, autobiography, and makes it an object with a queer story. And there are many more of these hiding somewhere in our archives. And this book is currently, oh, if I could have the next slide. This book is currently on display in the museum's long room as part of the Finding Queer Stories at Wiltshire Museum mini exhibition in the display cases. And the exhibition features items with LGBTQIA plus stories related to Siegfried Sassoon, Georgiana Cavendish, Duchess of Devonshire, Cecil Beaton, and Queen Anne. And these are the first ever queer stories discovered in our collections, and we are hoping to find many more.
I was fascinated to see the title page, which I hadn't realised until you sent this through, and so that I assume is Siegfried Sassoon's signature.
I'm not sure. Possibly.
So he was at Heytesbury House, which many of you will know was also where much earlier was where William Cullington lived as well. So I found it really interesting because one of the things you highlight in the exhibition is that many of these stories are completely hidden, partly because of the sort of legal constraints on people, but also that it was only sort of many, particularly written records, are only left by certain groups of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is something that I discuss in the exhibition as well. A lot. It's quite difficult to find queer history. You mostly find it in documents written by basically the wealthiest people, because those are the documents that survive by and about rich people, basically. And it's also very difficult to find sapphic stories, so stories about what we now call lesbians and queer women, because basically it was a huge taboo thing, and people believed that if you didn't talk about it, maybe women wouldn't know about it, and then maybe they wouldn't become gay because they wouldn't try it. So that makes it really difficult to find more information about these kinds of things. It's all very hidden, especially in newspapers. They never say, "Oh, they were convicted for being gay." They say, "Oh, they did terrible acts. We won't say what, but trust me, it was awful."
Very
So yeah,
subtle.
yeah. So you need to know what to look out for, and then a lot of these stories we find out about now because after these people pass away, they discover personal diaries or other people know about this, and suddenly these items become items with a queer story.
Yeah, I'm sure that, as you say, there's lots more that we just don't we don't know about or can't recognize.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, now over to you. And does anyone want to say anything? Ask any questions? Everyone always takes a minute or two just to think about that. And of course, the story that is best known is I've forgotten his name. The chap who who built Fonthill Abbey. It's gone. It's gone.
Mm.
And of course, the Beckford's Tower. So it's Beckford, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes, Beckford.
William.
Whew. Glad I remembered that. So Beckford's Tower in Bath, which has just been what's the word? Had extensive building work done and is now just reopened. I haven't been since it reopened, so that's something I must do. Been a real spate of openings in our neck of the woods recently.
It has lots of new things to see, which is really, really good.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Friday. So move on to the next object. The next, well, objects. I wondered why the 3 boxes you got for me, Lisa, were so heavy.
Okay, so
Now there's a bit of a clue there as to what's coming next.
okay, I'm thinking it's probably the axes.
You could be right.
Okay.
So what are we looking at now? So this is going to be an unboxing. So there we go. T532. So that's the reference that the British Museum give treasure finds. Middle Bronze Age hoard. Before we go any further, tell us what the circles thing is all about.
Okay, so we've got some climate control happening inside the box, inside the microenvironment. So that strip is telling us that the RH is at around 40%.
Is that where it changes between sort of pinkish and bluish?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're just making sure it doesn't get too damp inside the box because these are metal axes, they're copper alloy. And if the RH was to get too high, then we would start to have active corrosion. So you might see that there's some silica gel at the bottom there somewhere. If David goes right down into the bottom of the box, which is basically drying out any moisture that gets inside. So this is a hoard of 6 Middle Bronze Age. Oh, do I need to turn my camera off, David?
Oh yes, yes, if you would. And Friday, if you turn yours off as well. Oh wow. Sorry, I've not looked at the theme these, so
Yeah, they're really
seriously nice.
So it's a hoard of 6 Middle Age, Bronze Age palstave axes. They date to around 1300 BC, so we're looking at about 3,000 years old. And they were found in Wiltshire by a metal detectorist in 2021. Now, for those of you who don't know Wiltshire, it's in the Pewsey Vale and it's between Salisbury Plain and the North Wiltshire Downs, and it's quite close to the River Avon. So as David said, this is a portable antiquity scheme treasure find. And we were very lucky in the fact that the landowner generously waived his part of the reward, reducing the purchase price by 50%. And the hoard was also acquired using a legacy from Bernard Phillips, who I'm sure some people on the call will know was an archaeologist who was very active in North Wiltshire and Swindon and involved in lots of excavations, including the big Roman site up at Littlecote Roman Villa with Bryn Walters. So these axes are typical of the Middle Bronze Age, and they were made by casting molten bronze into a 2-part mould, and that mould could have been made from stone or bronze. And you get 2 different types of palstave axe in the Middle Bronze Age. You get looped palstaves and unlooped palstaves. And what you're looking at here are the unlooped. Now, in the layer underneath, we've got some looped ones that look very similar to these, but they have these little side attachments, side loops. And that's basically to attach the axe to the wooden handle using twine or some sort of string.
Let's make sure I don't get those numbers around the wrong way.
Yeah. So in this hoard, we've got 2 looped. Oh, they might be. Yeah, I can't see. There's a looped one, isn't there? Yeah.
That's right.
We've got 2 looped and 4 unlooped. And they can be decorated or plain. And the one on number 6 is a really nice decorated one. And these sorts of hoards were buried for different reasons. And a question for David: do those axes look worn to you, David, or have they got quite a sharp cutting edge on them still?
To me, they look worn.
Hmm.
You can see there's corrosion on the edge, on the cutting edge. So it could be corrosion. But something that struck me as one of the reasons I exclaimed when I opened them up is the colour. Because when you see most Bronze Age axes on display, they really are patinated very green. But these ones are sort of almost silvery. Well, that's probably, I suspect, when they came out the ground, they were carefully looked after because, as you said earlier, if they get too damp, then corrosion starts. That's why you've got silica gel in the bottom to buffer it to keep the humidity down. So it could be just that they were sort of put into decent conditions very quickly, which has kept the patina.
Yes, I
But,
think that they went from the metal detectorist to the fines liaison officer for Wiltshire quite quickly, and so that they were put into museum standard packaging.
yeah. So in which case they are quite heavily worn. And this one, your number 6, you can see where the loop must have been and it's been broken off.
Mm,
So again, that suggests quite heavy use.
yeah,
And this one is broken there. And interesting, there's a casting floor.
excellent.
I
Yeah.
don't know if, sorry, what I see on my camera is on reverse, so it's that's why I'm tilting things the wrong way. If you can see the hole down in the bottom of the rebate there, that's where it wasn't properly cast, and that means it would have been liable to break. Now that suggests this was poorly cast in the first place,
Mm.
and maybe there was may well have been another casting floor here, which is why it's broken. How interesting.
So that's a really nice hoard of 6, and there are different reasons for axe hoards being buried. They could be precious belongings so someone was trying to hide them in times of trouble to stop them being stolen, or perhaps they were a gift to the gods. And were they buried in good condition as an offering to um, the other worlds in exchange for protection, or to worship a particular god?
They're said often to be founders' hoards as well when people are buried, when a whole group of things, very mixed groups are buried. I'm not quite sure if I believe that or not, because if you're a metalsmith, why would you bury things? It'd be a lot more sensible to cast them then and there, or reuse them, or cast them into something you could then cart around. I'm
Yeah.
never very convinced by that. But it's quite interesting. On these, you've got on the top layer, um, one of them is definitely broken. The second one maybe. The third one's okay. And on the bottom layer, we've got 2 that are definitely broken. And as you say, the to me, the cutting edge looks quite worn on all of them. But also, these are really quite chunky. And I know in some, the amount of lead in them, so they're bronze, but that covers a multitude of sins. So that's copper with tin. But then a lot of quite often lead was added as well. That makes the casting easier, but does also make them softer.
Mm.
And at some point, and with some axes, there's so much lead in them that actually they're pretty useless. There's so much lead, they're actually soft. And it's been suggested, particularly when you get there's an amazing hoard from Dorset, where I think there's 4 layers arranged in a circle with something like almost 1,000 axes. And then you start to wonder if these are really just glorified ingots. So an axe shape is a way of carting metal around to use for other things.
And as you say, some of them are broken. So if the owner had come back for them, then perhaps they would have been melted down and recast into new axes.
Yeah. Sometimes well, I know that the people who really know what they're doing, which is not me, would have an idea of where the axes may have been made. They're sort of regional styles, aren't they? Aren't they?
There are regional styles. I don't know the regional styles for these ones, but yes, there definitely are. And it's to do with the flaring at the top of the blade and the length of the axe
And
itself
and decoration if
and the
there is some.
decoration. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's exciting. And the other thing is for our neck of the woods is we don't have many late Bronze Age hoards in comparison to the Thames Valley or to South Wiltshire.
No, we don't. You're
I mean,
absolutely right.
I remember when we were doing the Bronze Age gallery 10 years ago now. We were sort of bemoaning our lack of hoards, as one does.
Indeed. We're going to have a very nice Iron Age one ready for the Assize Court when we move there and we do our Iron Age gallery displays. There's another hoard that's come up relatively recently that's going through the treasure process at the moment, which will be a stunning display for the new museum.
Yeah. And the process is that the finds go up to the British Museum for analysis and to be studied, and then a report is made to the valuation committee, who then come up with a proposed sort of value for the objects, and then we have to raise the cash before we can then collect them. So the whole process can take, well, that came in 2021. That was when it was reported as treasure, and came in earlier this year
It came
into our museum.
Yeah, around Christmas time, just after Christmas.
So that gives you an idea how long it takes. COVID obviously was a bit of a problem as well. Right. So, oh, sorry, I'm just going on to the next before saying, any questions, comments, thoughts from anyone? Anything you'd like to say? So just fiddling around with things at my end to make sure they get them working. Okay. Anyone? No. Okay. What next?
I can't remember what's inside this one. Oh, okay, right. Yes, I can see.
Now you do.
Yes.
Can I take it out of the bag, or should I
Yeah.
better leave it in? Is it reasonably stable?
Yeah, as long as it's okay.
It's okay. In other words, be careful.
Yes. So whilst David's very carefully taking it out of the bag, it's part of a late medieval or early post-medieval figurine from the sidearm of a processional cross. So it dates to around 1500 and it was found in Urchfont last year and it was donated to the museum by the finder and the landowner. So as I said, it's the sidearm of a processional cross, and a processional cross is the crucifix or cross which is carried on a wooden or metal pole in Christian processions. So, and these things have a very long history, and they're documented in the written record from the late sixth century, and they are like a standard that would be carried during a Christian procession inside the church or perhaps outside as well. And it's suggested in the historical record that all churches were expected to have one of these. So now you can see a nice close-up of it.
I don't know if you realised I put it upside down, not realising what it was, and actually twigged where the figurine was.
So the figurine, the female standing figure, that's nice. You've cut her head off. Yeah, that's better.
Except how's that? No. Sorry, excuse me while I just rearrange things.
And can you come out a tiny bit? That's it. So the female standing figure on the top, that's the Virgin Mary. She's looking to the right. She's wearing a hood and wearing a long robe. Her elbow is bent and her right hand is clasped to her breast. The left arm is incomplete, but it's outstretched at the elbow. And the reverse of the figure is plain, and it's fairly corroded, so we can't see very much on the other side. And she's standing on a rectangular base, and below the base we've got the openwork foliage decoration. If we can just move slightly down just to see what she's standing on. And on this part of the object, we've got some traces of gilding, but it's very difficult to see on the camera because it's quite corroded. So unfortunately, you probably can't pick it up on the camera, but
I can see just
there is some gilding.
I can see just a tiny piece of gilding just there.
Yeah.
By my little finger.
So unfortunately, it's not complete, but it's quite a rare object for Wiltshire. It was highlighted by the Portable Antiquities Scheme as an object of interest. I can't think that we've got anything that's very similar to it in the collections, and so we were really pleased when it was donated to the museum last year. And it's a nice local one, Urch font as well, so not too far from Devizes.
You know, this is where you start to put things together and make a story, where presumably it was in the church until the dissolution. Because everyone knows about the dissolution of the monasteries, but not that commissioners were sent around all parish churches as well to confiscate anything worth having. So either this processional cross, maybe there was something on it, maybe there was some jewels, or maybe the figure of Christ had lots of gold on or something, and they just ripped it to pieces. Or the other possibility is that it may have been buried. Quite a few objects were buried to try and hide them as well. Maybe you can invent all sorts of stories of how it ended up where it was found.
And the dates for that fit really well because the dating is between 1400 and 1530 AD, I think, from memory.
Yeah. So I'll just put change camera. So back to me again while I put it away. Then Lisa isn't checking on how carefully I'm doing it.
I'll come back in as well.
So if anyone wants to ask anything. I've been very quiet.
The less they ask, the more objects they get to see. Maybe that's it.
Well, there is that. There is that. But that's a wonderful thing, is I've not seen that in the flesh, and it's huge, quite heavy, just as it is.
It is. Yeah.
So the whole thing would have been really quite substantial.
So even though it was found in 2023, it only came into the museum about 6 weeks ago, something like that.
Oh, I think we've got one on the Q&A. What's the metal, as Wendy has said? It's
cast copper alloy.
It's quite nasty. It's not the same. It's quite interesting. The quality is quite poor. But I suppose actually that could be from the chemicals in the plough, because lots of chemicals get dumped on the plough soil, of course, by the farmers, and that does have quite an impact on the preservation of the metal.
Yeah, and it is quite badly corroded. That was flagged up in the original report, and that's why we can't see much of the gilding. It's gone, unfortunately, but there are traces of it there.
Yeah, maybe we can save up our pennies and try and get it conserved and cleaned, as we got a conservator we work closely with, who is brilliant, and but that unfortunately costs money.
Indeed, yes. It would be a nice one to do some further research on, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? No. Okay. Next object, which I managed to get out. Just change cameras again.
Okay, I'll just switch mine off. Oh, okay, another social history one. So this is a small stoneware glazed brown jar with a cork stopper and a broken handle, and it's quite nice because the cork stopper's still in it. Now, yeah. So if you can just tip it slightly backwards, David, so we can see, that's it, so that we can see the writing. Great. So it's H.G. Barry, wine merchant, Devizes. Now, I'd never heard of H.G. Barry before this acquisition came in earlier in the year. It was found near the town hall in Devizes by a local building company who then donated it to the museum. So I asked one of the volunteers in the library to do a little bit of research for me because, as I say, I'd never heard of H.G. Barry. And there are a couple of things in the collections that relate to him. So now we know a little bit more about him. He stood for Councillor of Devizes in 1867, and there's a poster in the collections relating to this, and he's listed as wine merchant, and the address given on the poster is Northgate Street. We also got a sales catalogue in the collections, and it's the sale of the Dolphin, or Barry's Inn, as it was also known in Devizes, which was on 60 Northgate Street in 1897. And the particulars specifically say that it belonged to Mr. Barry. So yes, Barry's Inn was a drinking establishment in Northgate Street in 1897. That was
Which
right.
presumably is still the same dolphin that's up by the what's it called? The cinema.
I'm guessing so, yes. Yeah.
You can't be sure, but well, John Gervant would be sure because he's researched all the pubs in Devizes. But sometimes the names get reused, so it can be a bit of a if it can be, you can sometimes make assumptions that it's still the same Red Lion or Crown or whatever, and actually it's in a completely different place.
Yeah.
But
Oh, sorry, David.
what do you think was in it?
Well, it's quite small, and it's got that 40 on it, which is a measurement. So I'm thinking it's probably spirits, maybe
Yeah.
fortified wine or spirits.
Nice bit of brandy.
Yeah, or maybe port or something like
Yeah.
that.
Does it slosh around when you shake it?
I don't think so. I think everything's evaporated out of it.
That's a pity. Either that, or you got to it first.
Yeah. So Barry lived in Devizes for a while, but he was originally from Lymington in Hampshire, and he was an entrepreneur who couldn't make his fortune in Lymington, and so he made his way to Devizes, trading as a wine merchant with his premises on Northgate Street. And whilst he was in Devizes, and I don't think this is any coincidence, he developed a really strong interest in the study of prehistory. So I think that's probably something to do with us and the society. And when he eventually returned to his hometown in Lymington, he carried out some rudimentary excavations and wrote a book about prehistoric Lymington, which was published by a publisher in Devizes in 1885. So he has that connection with Devizes, but then he returns to his hometown in Lymington. And also in the archaeology collections, at the museum, we do have a medieval iron socketed spearhead that was found east of Wansdyke. It doesn't say anything more specific than that. But in the old 1911 catalogue, it says it was presented to the society by a Mr. Barry sometime in the later half of the 19th century. So I'm thinking that's him as well.
And of course, one of his rivals, William Cunnington third and
Yes.
second and third. Of course, they had their business at the former town hall in what's now Wine Street.
Yes, so we had more than one wine merchant in the town.
So obviously it was a done thing for wine merchants to be interested in archaeology.
It was, yes.
Okay, should we go on to the next?
Yeah.
Unless there's any questions? No, doesn't look like it. Okay. And here we go again.
Okay, so this is a Neolithic polished flint axe. It was donated to the museum last year and it was found in the garden of Brooke House in Cherrell, which is near Calne. It was actually discovered in 1958, but it was only given to the museum last year. And it was given in memory of the couple that found it and who lived in the house in the 1950s. So I'm sure that people on the call who have visited the museum will have, they'll notice that we've got quite a few of these on display. So it's a Neolithic polished flint axe. It's still got a really good sharp cutting edge, if you can just hold it. Yeah, so it's really still got that sharp edge, and it's made from a local flint, which is that typical sort of white grey colour. These are essential tools throughout the Neolithic, so we're talking around 4000 to 2500 BC, and they were used for cutting down trees to clear areas for growing crops and grazing animals.
So on this size could well have been used for sort of slightly finer woodwork, couldn't it?
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see how much of the has been polished away, and you can contrast the two sides. So you see the scars of the flakes here, but most of them have been polished out. And on the other face, lots has been polished out. But then you've got the cortex, the sort of the white skin, if you like, on the outside of the flint still there.
And the grinding and the polishing of the axe took a very long time. We're talking days of work, but that grinding and polishing made the axe stronger and longer lasting, and it also meant that it could cut through the wood more cleanly. So, and you've got that lovely sharp cutting edge that's still visible on this one.
Right. So any questions? Anyone? Thoughts? No? Okay. Yeah, we can show the other two. I can keep my, oh, I'm thinking of the time, so it's 8:20. So if we show your two objects, then I'll just show one of the ones I was going to talk about.
Sure.
Didn't realize you had such small bags as the one with this one.
Well, that should give me a clue of which one you're choosing next. Is it gold?
No,
Okay, is it lead?
it might be.
Like 20.
Let me just swap the video over.
So this is really nice, and it's part of a Roman lead curse tablet. There we are. So we don't know exactly the age, but we know that it's Roman. Just trying to, that's really, yeah, that's great. Good, we can see the lettering on there now. So it was found near Swindon, again by a metal detectorist. It was found last year, and it's one of two that have been found in this area. And it was recorded by the Portable Antiquities Scheme and then kindly donated to the museum by the finder and the landowner. So when it was found, it was all scrunched up, and we took the decision to very, very gently unfold it so that the letters could be read. So the way I'm seeing it now, so you can see an F-I-L-I, and that's on the top line of the inner face of the curse, and then beneath it you've got an X and an I. So that is probably a person's name. So all we can see is Fili, Fili, and then the XI underneath. But it's a person's name, and it was written on this lead curse, and then it was buried in the ground, or possibly thrown in water. Some curses are thrown in water, and then that is to put a curse on somebody. So a list of names are quite common on a curse. This is a very simple one. It's just got one name on it. Perhaps the person who wrote it was particularly angry, so he needed a curse of his own. I don't know. And there are famous examples at the Roman baths, but the theory is the same. The tablets were written on, then they were rolled up, buried in the ground, and they were made by people who felt that they'd suffered an injustice, or they were asking for wrongs to put right, or just for good old-fashioned revenge.
So I think there's one from Bath which sort of, may a curse be on the person who stole my cloak, or something like that.
Yes.
Obviously, someone in the baths stole his cloak while he was in the changing rooms, from the changing rooms. Nothing new under the sun.
So that's our first Roman lead curse in the collections.
Mm.
And there's a second one found in close proximity. So someone was very angry, I think, living in that area.
Is there any sort of inscription on that one that can be deciphered?
It's only just been found, and I haven't seen it yet. So again, it's come from same metal detectorist, I think, but I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, interesting to know if they that site may have something that may be connected with the temple or something like that.
Yes, that's some further research to be done.
Yeah, how interesting. I'm just going to put this away very carefully. I didn't realise what that was. I'm not sure I've opened it. And then that means you should know what the last one is.
Okay.
Although you said gold, it's not gold, is it? Is it?
Is it the coin brooch?
It's the coin brooch.
Okay, it's not the one I was thinking of then.
That's for next time.
Yeah, we can do that one for next time. So it's another very small object that David's about to put under the camera for you to see. And it's another portable antiquities treasure find that was purchased by the museum with money generously given by the Box Archaeological and Natural History Society after they wound up earlier this year. So what we're looking at here is two things in one. That's good. That's nice and sharp.
And have you got, the lights?
Yes. Yeah.
Picking up the detail.
Good, thank you. So not only is it an Anglo-Saxon early medieval coin, it's also a brooch. So it's a coin that has been modified into a brooch, and it's made from a gilded silver penny of Edward the Confessor, and it dates to the early 1050s AD. So as you can see, it's been modified into a brooch by having the catch plate and the pin attached to the reverse of the coin.
So I thought they usually showed the head of the king. This one doesn't.
No, it doesn't, does it? It's a silver penny. It was minted in Shrewsbury. And the money's name is on there. It's Goddess brand. I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly. Godesbrand. His name is inscribed on the coin, if you can make that out.
Yeah, you can see that's the God, and then it sort of goes after that.
Mm.
I guess this side is probably more talismanic in the sense that it's got crosses on. It's cross design and with crosses.
Yeah.
So it will be something really sort of that's why that side's been chosen. As I said, the ones I've seen before have have got it's the head of the king.
He's on the reverse. Yeah, coin jewelry was a popular fashion accessory in Anglo-Saxon times, particularly in the second half of the 11th century, so during the reigns of Edward the Confessor and William I and William II. Um, and these brooches were primarily worn by women, so when we find them in a burial context, it tends to be with a female. And these brooches and pins and buckles, they were absolutely essential. They weren't just fashion accessories, if you like. They were absolutely essential to clothing because the Anglo-Saxons didn't have any buttons or they didn't have any zips. So it was to protect their modesty and hold the edges of their clothes together.
Oh, and Jill has said, where was it found?
It was found near Box, sorry, in Box, which is near Bar.
Yeah, which is why it's very appropriate that the box, when the Box Archaeological and Natural History Society closed down, they turned over to us the reserves that they had, and it's particularly appropriate we're able to use it to purchase this find.
Yes. Yes, it's a really nice one.
Oh. Okay. Any other questions on that one? Okay. Well, let's go to the last one then. The last things. So these are so it's back to me for these. Might as well do both. And these are both from PowerPoint slides, so it's not real objects, I'm afraid. They're a bit big. Well, one of them, the first one is far too fragile. So let me just share my screen with you. There we are. Hopefully you can see the this, which is a poster saying Devizes, the picturesque, picture skew, as my mum always used to say, centre of the historical county of Wilts. Open downs, bracing air, 450 feet of altitude, and modern shops. Isn't it wonderful? This is a GWR poster, and I've forgotten the name that's on it, but it's the name of the boss of the GWR. Means it was made, it was printed sometime in the 1930s or very early 1940s. So by implication, it has to be 1930s. But this is absolutely wonderful. And it's a full-size poster, isn't it, Lisa?
It is a full-size poster and we've now had it scanned and I'm having it framed at the moment, not only to protect the edges of the poster paper, which is very brittle, but so that we can put it on display. So yes, it's been scanned and framed, and I think it will make a rather nice tea towel in the museum shop, David, as well as being a lovely, authentic 1930s poster.
And mug. And
And
mug.
mug, yes.
Oh, sorry, I've just realised you've put two things in the same box. So the other item you mentioned is there as well. Yeah,
Okay.
sorry. Yeah. So we've also looking at making this into a mug as well. So that should be fun. And then the second thing to show you, if I get the right one, is this, which is a drawing, and you can see at the bottom it's the signed John Piper. And this, as you can tell, is Devizes Marketplace. So this is a drawing he did in 1942 when he visited, and he was preparing an article that was starting to look at what should happen to architecture after the end of the Second World War. So already in 1942, they were thinking about, or he was thinking about what came next. He was, of course, a war artist, and he did some pictures, a picture of Laycock at around this time. I can't remember the exact date, but he was certainly in the area. He grew up in Oxfordshire, but he visited the museum here at least a couple of times. And of course, you'll know that in 1980, for the new art gallery, what we now call the Piper Gallery, we commissioned him to produce the design for a stained glass window. But this is wonderful because you've got his drawing, but also you've got the notes that go with it. Where he's sort of talking about dingy stucco. And something that's really nice is he's written the Black Swan Hotel here, but then he's got to cut something out, which is a little bit of collage, and that's black. But obviously the K wasn't there, or the K wasn't right, so he's written that in Swan Hotel. So he's got the typeface there. Next to it is the Devizes Cooperative. Of course, that's gone. That was demolished, I think, in the 70s. Now replaced by new building put up by Gagers, and is Costa, isn't it? Is it Costa? I'm never very good with these coffee houses.
Not sure. Neither am I.
And then next to it is Anstis, as was now, rather amusingly, a vape shop, of course. Then what's after that? Oh, that's Goff's. Then what? The Cromwell House Hotel, W.H. Smith, which is still there, and now I've the Cromwell House Hotel, then W.H. Smith, and then Strong's, which was until recently was Times Square. And it then rather intrigued. Oh, we've got the fountain, Escort Fountain, and then intriguingly it says here continued on coloured drawing, which, as far as we know, has been lost. So that's quite fun. But he then used this to create this lithograph, which was published in the Cornhill magazine in 1943. And it was then used as the cover and inside sort of frontispiece, that's not the proper word, of a book he wrote that's published in 1946. And you see this is just a small part of it. So you've got the Black Swan Hotel. Notice the black from the collage. Devizes Cooperative Society, and New Street, now of course called Snuff Street. Anstis isn't really there, but it's tobacco manufacturer. Flowers, fruit, vegetables. The Cromwell House Hotel is not mentioned. And you've got the Escort Fountain, Smith's, and sort of Strong sort of doesn't really appear properly. So this is one of two lithographs he did of Devizes in the Cornhill magazine, and we've got artist proof prints of those in the collection already, and also I managed to find a copy of the book that this appeared in. Unfortunately, missing the dust jacket, but the illustration on the inside is there, and this is quite fun just to compare the two. This is the drawing, and this is the section that he did as the lithograph. So, any questions, thoughts, comments on those two? Or shall we go on to the final thing, which is gold?
Ooh, back to me.
You have to try and remember what it is now. To put you on the spot.
I know. It's very, very small, but it's rather intriguing. And it's a nice one to finish with because in true archaeologist fashion, I'm going to say, I don't know what it is.
Must be ritual then.
Yes, that's exactly what it is because it's Bronze Age, so it's got to be.
Now swap camera again. See what this looks like. Oh, we'll have to go in a lot closer, won't we? As you say, it is quite small.
Yes,
this is a centimetre scale. I'm sure you realise that.
That's it. That's coming in a bit sharper now. That's good. So it's a piece of Bronze Age sheet gold. It's a strip or perhaps a ribbon. I can't really be more specific than that. So it dates to around 2000 BC or perhaps as late as 1000 BC, and it was found in Heytesbury in 2021. It's another portable antiquity scheme treasure item that was purchased by the museum. So it's all scrunched up in a bit in the way that the lead purse was, but we haven't tried to unravel it because it's just too fragile. But you can see that the surface is decorated with 6 parallel grooved lines that run lengthwise of the gold strip. I think you can just about see that. And it's been folded several times, and it was folded like that before it was put into the ground. So before it was deposited in the ground 2,000-3,000 years ago. And it's difficult to know how long it is because it's all scrunched up. But there are similar items that have been found across the country and have been recorded on the Portable Antiquity Scheme database. It's not particular to Wiltshire. Similar things have been found across the country. And although the original function, excuse me, the original function of the object isn't known, if David can, no, don't turn it over. Actually, I can see the bit that I'm looking for. Sorry.
You.
So there's one remaining terminal that tapers with a hooked end. Can you
Just
see
there.
that? Yeah, can you point?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the only indication really that tells us what it might have been. And because it's got that tapering terminal and it's got that fine hooked end, we think it could be part of a bracelet or another piece of jewelry, some sort of, when you put it round your wrist, it would have been part of the clasp to fix it onto yourself.
Yes. Because what it reminded me of was we do have a Bronze Age bracelet in the collection, don't we?
Yes.
Quite an early one. And that's got the same sort of parallel lines. I wondered if it was a finger ring, but I hadn't spotted the tapering and the hook, but also it's too long.
Yes.
You know, you can take a guess at how long it is, and it's probably 6 or 8 centimeters long, which is far too big for it to be a ring. It's
So
very thin too.
Yeah, it could be a child's bracelet, and we do have a child's bracelet, a twisted gold child's bracelet in the collections from Potton, I think.
Oh yeah,
And that would just
that's
about fit if it was a small child.
and that's quite a bit heavier though, as in thicker. It's more like a mini torque, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's twisted gold strands, but the length would fit, but it would just be incredibly fragile. But it's just that tapering end with that hook.
I wouldn't.
Possibly some sort of jewelry.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust a toddler with it.
No. They probably only allowed to wear it for about 10 minutes on a very special occasion and not move.
Best behaviour.
Yes.
I suspect it's for something else. How interesting. Yeah. Sorry, as you can tell, this is the first time I've seen it. It's quite fun, this. I get to see things that I've seen, or occasionally seen photos of. But
it's good to finish on something where we don't really know what it is. So if people in the audience might have an idea of what it is, then open to suggestions.
Yeah. Okay, so camera's back on. So I don't think anyone's come up with any great ideas. So I think that's everything we've got to show you today. As Lisa says, we'll try and do this regularly. Sometimes it's a bit difficult just to get everything organized, but I think it's great fun to be able to look at these things and share them with you. So any last questions or thoughts before we sign off? Doesn't sound like it. In which case, because we've still got everybody with us well, someone's just gone, but we've got still everybody with us, so I don't think we bored everyone too much. So thank you, everyone, and good night.
Thank you.
Oh, I can take oh no, I can't. I was going to say I can take my black gloves off, but I can't. I've got to put them away now. Okay, thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.